We have Steve Koleno. He's with Worth Clark Realty. And Carla, you hit the nail on the head. The idea here is if you could actually speak to somebody that does this level of transactions, it's really great. Steve, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
What I liked about Steve's story was that he hasn't been an agent for years, yet he's doing crazy numbers. Just don't be shy. Tell us a little bit about what you've done in the last year or two.
Okay. I started working with the general public. Truth be told, I've been licensed about 12 years, but never worked with the general public. Had it to buy some investment properties, got into the corporate real estate game, and really couldn't use it to be a regular agent. So really started working with the public about 25, 26 months ago. First year, just like every agent, started off okay, but closed 16 deals. Got my game going a little better. Yeah. We kind of implemented Matterport, which is a 3D virtual tour, floor plans, got a little more high tech. And in last year, we closed about 124 transactions. So we had a big jump. That was my first full year.
That's all of 2018, right?
Yes. Yes. And then this last year, even bigger leap. Right now, we just closed our 250th transaction yesterday of the year.
That's amazing.
On pace to close about 300 at this point.
And a lot of these people, that's really crazy numbers, and he's so humble about it, but he's doing something that's different. And so right now you have a lot of folks that are going to be selling their place, and they're investors, right? And so they will come on and they'll maybe sell 5, 10, 15 properties at a time. How do you manage this many type of transactions?
Yeah, that was the trick. So what we have done now, I'm an independent agent, but I have a solid team. Of course, everything is around the team. My wife, my beautiful wife, is a huge part of that team as well. And we have basically 3 full-time admins and a part-time MLS assistant who helps me put them on the MLS. And that's basically what we do. So, but we implement systems on everything. So I have systems from offering platforms. We've taken 680 offers this year. To do that, you can't do it through email. So we do it complete transparency through different types of offer systems. When we get a listing, we immediately have a system where we're out within hours, have it up on the MLS pretty quick. We do specialize working with a lot of investors. So that's the other thing, right? I don't have the same issues as, say, a typical agent who has to maybe battle for the listing. Once you win that relationship and you have a flipper who might flip 15 homes a year, or an institutional player who might sell 50 homes a year, it's a little easier game. But the trick is trying to come up with all those processes and systems to be able to support that volume. And I think that's what we've done pretty well. Learning the way all along the way, because 2 years ago I only closed 16 deals, but it's been interesting.
That's amazing.
Stephen, let's get up and cozy, right? Because it's cold outside. We want to get to know you a little bit more. Can you share with us, you talk about systems.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about your background? Where do you come from and why systems is important to you? Because real estate is more of a relationship business where we're networking, we're out in the field, we're meeting people, we're doing that one-on-one connecting. But you're more of a systems, more like an automated system type of like process, business. Can you explain to our audience how you started, where you come from as far as your background, and your passion behind the volume and running that type of business?
Yeah. And I think that's important, because a lot of it comes from confidence, and I had some confidence coming in that I'd be successful because of your background, right? So basically, in a nutshell, I became an investor in 2005. I have a tech background. I'm an engineer by trade. Became a realtor in like 2006. Started my own business with a high school buddy of mine. We ended up buying 73 single-family homes in our life.
Wow.
But 2009 was not a good time to even own one house, and we owned 60. By 2012, that business went away, and I got into the institutional investor market, where the companies, Wall Street was basically coming in and starting to buy those foreclosures. And I was lucky enough to get in there. So worked in the institutional real estate game for about 3 years with 3 different companies, some of the biggest companies in the world. Some of those companies own 80,000 homes. So at one time, I managed a team of 46 people, 4,900 homes. And in like 2016, we even rented over 1,200 homes. I had a team of 8 agents, 6 assistants, and we rented 1,253 homes in two states.
So property management is the background
Basically
as well.
Coming from property management, right? And so you didn't have to fight for the listings per se, but I was an employee, right? My income was capped. But what it did teach me is, like, we would take in anywhere from 500 to 800 leads a week. And I managed a team that did that. So once you saw that and you knew it was humanly possible, because I realized to the average person or agent, those numbers are big.
Yeah.
But inside these systems, we were able to do that, through different things like exception reports and things like that.
Do expand on that. So for the novice investor or someone, right, because we're in fourth quarter, everyone is talking about buying and holding at this point.
Yep.
The flipping game is kind of like, a slow period. And so we're questioning next year. But this holding where you're buying doors, you're buying investment properties, can you give some advice or just best trade secrets on how to manage property and manage that number of properties?
Man, that's a tough game because me, my wife, and we used to have our business where we managed 65, and it took all our effort, right? But once it got to watching the bigger players, that's where, because they had more money, more resources, they were able to put in. But a lot of those players initially started off like property managers. They used external property managers. Then they would find they brought it all in-house because they can control the processes more, control maintenance, control the turns. And being in that side of the industry on property management at a bigger scale, it was all that, right? It was trying to figure out the close your turn times. Instead of being 21 days to, we wanted to be able to get the house turned in 7 days and get it repainted and ready for the next tenant, compared to, that's it. I mean, you're basically just trying to always make incremental changes to help drive the numbers. Because when you're talking, like we would manage 4,900 homes just in our region.
Wow.
Right, one
That's
day
crazy.
per house over a year was huge.
Yeah.
So, in the other side of that part, I think that helps, and I can kind of see some of the little bit of the future of real estate. I guess was for one of the companies, we rented 2,100 homes in 11 months, all using what we call a Rently box, which was self-showing, meaning it's kind of the future. And this was 3 years ago. So, some of those techniques and the things I saw in that institutional type environment has completely helped me because I can create my own systems. I know what it looks like, and has gotten us to where we're at today.
This is why I like having guests like Steve on, because it's actually something so different, and it really shows you that there's different levels of this business. There are people that are going to do a couple of transactions, and this really helps you just try to elevate your real estate IQ. We always come back to that. How can you learn something on one nugget where you could say, I could actually apply that to my business? And this is what we all strive for. If you can do a couple of transactions, that's great. But really taking it and ramping it up, it takes these types of processes. It doesn't just happen overnight. He's taken real things that in the past, if you were just doing a couple of transactions, it wouldn't be possible. So these are the things that are really great about having Steve on. What do you think of that, Carla?
I love it. And more importantly, for our listeners, the people who really want to know, like, how does this benefit me? How can I be in your light? And what can I do to grow from the information that you're giving me, right? So having said that, I'm going to milk the information out of you. I want it all.
Yeah.
So for someone who's looking to buy and there's not a lot of inventory, we know that the reason why I'm not so afraid about next year is because we still have a lack of inventory. Yeah. And here you are coming in saying, I have all the inventory you want. So, but I can never get a hold of you. I'm never going to have that one-on-one relationship. I'm just going to submit an offer, and I may never even meet you in person. You're never going to show me this property. Can you explain to me the difference between a volume transaction versus one where I expect you to call me back and respond to me personally?
Right. So here's slightly different. So I'm a listing agent. So I've only done 4 buy-side transactions, and the reason I don't do as many buy-side transactions is way more time-consuming in hand-holding and that relationship, right? On the listing side, through technology, modern technology, it's become more of a marketing. If you become a marketing expert, and you're an expert at it, which I consider we are, that's really what sells houses. It's not necessarily as much the customer support. If you call me at 11:30 at night, I answer. I'm still one of those guys. I take every one of my phone calls. I work with every agent. I don't pass any phone calls to my assistant. So I'm just a workhorse that way, right? But the biggest thing is that on the listing side, it's easier to go to scale because it's more about marketing. I go view the house once. I have a sit down with the seller, and then it's just an admin calling your photographer, calling for drones, calling Matterport. My wife actually does our Matterport business, and really you don't go back to the house again. And then it's more all systems, accepting the offer, negotiating the offer. On the list side of the business, way different, little way easier than on a buy side transaction.
Right. No, and I get that, right?
Yeah.
That's more of like the management real
Correct.
estate lingo.
Yep.
You and I could talk about how it is that you're doing it, the
Right.
behind the scenes. But I'm talking about for that buyer who goes online and sees one of your listings
Right.
and wants to make a bid. Like, how can I, as a buyer, win that bid and be one of, because you have so many listings?
I got a good buyer tip. Maybe it'll lean into that question.
Okay.
That I see agents make based on seeing 680 transactions. We get a lot of multiple offers. So
Right.
My biggest one was 17 offers. That's unusual, but we get 3, 4 offers, 5
How do you
offers.
manage
I was
that?
trying to win $1,000 earlier today. Now you're telling me you got
We
to
had
outbid 17 other realtors?
So, but what I have seen, the biggest thing is something called an escalation clause. If you ever get into a multiple bid
you'll take it.
situation, we take it, but there's so many people who don't know, the other agents,
Really?
newer agents, or just don't know. And unfortunately, you've watched some of them overpay.
Oh,
Because
wow.
an escalation clause could make you the highest offer.
Do you sit there and you're like, ha, ha, ha?
No, not really. But
You know you do.
It could make you the highest offer, but sometimes it make your client overpays because the other side doesn't know what the other bid is.
Yeah, can
And
you explain for listeners who don't know what that is, what an escalation
So an
clause is?
escalation clause is, say we have a 200,000, we have 3 offers, and we have an offer at 195, 198, and 200. We call for highest and best offer by a certain date. So we're asking all 3 parties to go ahead and submit the offer. Well, if somebody comes in with an escalation clause like that 195 offer, if they had a good agent who's on top of that, they could come in and say, we want to bid 201, $1,000 above the next highest offer, starting at 201, but not higher than 205. So now all of a sudden, all the bids come in, the highest bid is 203. These guys are only going to pay 204. What I have seen firsthand is somebody comes in and they bid 214.
Yeah.
Happens a lot.
They win, but they
win,
lost.
but they won by 9,000. They'll never
Right.
know it because we don't share that,
Right.
But so an escalation clause on the buyer side, multiple offers is quick tip to just kind of throw a nugget.
But that's why I wanted you to share that with our audience because they're consumers in essence, right? So they want to know the secrets of how to win a bid as well. So the escalation clause is pretty funny because like I said, you're like in the background like ha ha ha, and that's the difference between a bidding or making an offer on a transaction where you're getting a response from a realtor versus where you're sending an email where it's cold and dry, you don't hear it. Because see, when I call the realtor, I kind of okay, what's it going to take to get the deal done?
Yep.
So if I get my inspector in there, you're going to say, okay, Carla. And I'm like, so what do you think I should come in at so I can kind of massage the information out of you? But when you're directly working with the computer, you're bidding yourself.
Right,
And
right.
that's when you overbid.
Yeah, and we still present all offers, and I talk to every realtor, and I still have those conversations.
So like for now and ever,
Yeah.
now I'm going to call you. We're going to have that.
But the technology part is I kind of use that with my seller, especially the big corporate sellers, right? They don't want you to call them with a bid because you might have 20 listings of theirs, right? A little different there with the technology, but we leverage that kind of on the seller. But we still have that handhold, we still are communicating all the offers
in real time.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
amazing. That's so quick because when they come in, sometimes it takes time for the listing agent to go back and share that information with the seller. You've already put those systems in place.
Yep, it's immediate.
That's amazing.
So it goes directly to the client.
Goes
They know.
directly to all parties. So
you
if
don't
the
even see it.
Yeah, the buyer agent goes on. It's right in. It's the instructions are on the MLS, and it tells them basically to submit your offer. Please upload to this platform. It's really easy to do. They just log in through Facebook. They don't have to create another ID, and it just automatically happens. Yep.
So there you have it. We're talking about a volume transacting realtor versus a one-on-one boutique realtor. And for you as a consumer, the difference is on the bidding process. When you submit an offer, you can always talk to that realtor and kind of get a sense as to where they are with numbers. But when you're working with the volume producing realtor, you're getting a response, and sometimes you're going to bid yourself because there's no emotion in the transaction. And we see those trends in the REO business, correct? In the foreclosures, when you're bidding for foreclosures.
Right.
Is it very similar?
Very similar. Like that's my line. I almost tell everybody is basically it's very similar to an REO. Like some of my clients, corporate clients, may not respond for 48 hours. Right? It's not an REO, but it's very much like that. So that's the process. Yeah.
And, it's important to understand that because you when people have a budget, and it goes back to staying true to your budget, Joel. I mean, when you issue these pre-approvals, people would say, well, I'm approved for $450. And I say, okay, let's break that down. What is your monthly budget, right? What's your taxes, insurance, and assessments if you're buying a condo? So let's go backwards. In some scenarios, my advice to a buyer is that if you are in a very, creative budget, don't get into the bidding wars, especially when you have to do the highest and best. I hate it when they call for highest and best because I'm like, oh, hang me. Like, how am I going to know?
Absolutely.
And then you do an escalation clause, and then you have somebody that in the trends, right, are going to come back and do $10,000 above like the listing price, and then they come and adjust during inspection period, which I'm sure you get that too.
I get that too.
How do you handle that?
A lot of ours are sold as is, but like I tell people in the state of Illinois, attorneys here, we're very attorney happy, where other states, the realtors control a lot of the closing process. Here, attorneys kind of ignore that. Even if when we sell a lot of ours as is, kind of like an REO, like you mentioned, they still will beat you up a little bit. But we try to hold our own. But once in a while, if there's a valid concern, you can still make adjustments to a contract, obviously.
I love that you say that.
Amazing.
You've covered a lot today. One of the takeaways here before we let you go is you need to have systems in place. If you're doing a couple of transactions and you want to grow your business and take it to the next level, he's told you, you need to have systems in place that you can actually rely on. You're not going to be able to do it all in your head. Okay.
And aside from systems, do you sleep?
No, I do not.
Right?
Yep, nope.
You don't? You go to
Not
bed
really.
I do. Shout out to Ryan Smith if you're watching. He says he watches, but he says he wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning, does his own type of Creo where he jumps in the shower, cold shower, and then gets in front of the desk and doesn't leave that desk all day because he's an REO broker and it's all systems and process and marketing. So congratulations. You're a superstar and, just keep on rocking.
You got it.
Before
Thanks,
you
guys.
go, tell us where we can find you. Give us your full name again and where we can reach you.
This one's easy. Connectwithsteve.com. All my social media, everything's there, websites. So connectwithsteve.com.
Thank you for coming on today.